Okay, I think we're going. Welcome to the McLuhan Institute Live number 3. Here we are in the scriptorium. I'm inventorying books. Okay, just settled here, so in case you haven't been here before, I'm doing an inventory of the library of Eric McLuhan, and I've only really just started in that the library is about 6,000 volumes, and I'm only a few hundred in, so long way to go. I'm doing this every week for about 15 minutes or so. Last week we left off with this book from the Great Books of the Western World, courtesy of Encyclopedia Britannica and the University of Chicago. And we had Elements of Chemistry by Lavoisier, Analytic Theory of Heat by Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier, and Experimental Researches in Electricity, Michael Faraday. Where we had in the back an annotation from my dad, TOC, meaning Theory of Communication, Think in Words Only, which meant something to one of our friends at the Institute, Mr. Murray. Continuing on, we have another in that series, Hegel. Might interest some people. The Philosophy of Right, the Philosophy of History. So what we do is we make a note first. I am doing an inventory. So we note what shelf it came from, which is over here, shelf 3D. And the titles, Philosophy of Right and Philosophy of History. And it's our man, George Hegel. It is hardcover. It is in good condition, and as we said, Chicago Encyclopedia Britannica, year 1952. Next thing we do is we have a little look through to see if there are any annotations, any notes, any bits of paper stuck in. And there do not appear to be any of these things. It smells like a book. It looks like a book. It is not a book heavily used, from what I can tell with a very casual glance. Usually, both Marshall and Eric McLuhan were annotators and makers of marginalia. They used their books for inspiration, to expand their own minds, to make discoveries, to discover things the authors hadn't considered, to put things into different contexts. And they made a note in the front or the end papers thing of note, and I move on. Next we have Goethe, Faust, parts 1 and 2. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Hardcover, good condition. (1952). And again, nothing apparently of note. It's unusual that there's nothing at all. Not so unusual in this case because we're talking about a full set of books, some of which are useful, some of them not so much. But there aren't a lot of books in Marshall's or Eric's library that are not useful for one reason or another. They simply didn't keep them around. No reason to. Well, that's fine. We can move a little faster. Oh, and here we have Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. I think there's actually a copy of Moby Dick over in Dad's Menippean satire section. You want to take a look? Let's go for a walk. Why not? This might be a little more complicated than I thought, but we'll try it. Hold on a second. Let's detach ourselves. Leave that plugged in. Give you a tiny tour of the library here. Over here, there's a note, Moderns, Menippean Satire. And sure enough, as I thought, here's Moby Dick. And this does have quite a bit of annotation in it. Oh, look what I've done. I only have one good hand here. I'm just going to rest it on the shelf there, and I'll put it back when I have two hands again. There's Dad's work area there. There's a painting by one of my relatives, I guess. A great aunt from Texas who painted big oil paintings with gilt frames. They're kind of remarkable. There hanging above the door is an oar. It's a door oar. This is Marshall McLuhan's oar, which he won from the Cambridge Rowing Club. What was the year? 1936. He was part of the rowing team, and in Cambridge, at that time anyway, if your team won, I think it was against Oxford, the big match, then you were allowed to keep the oar. So that was a particular honor, and he brought that back somehow all the way from Cambridge University in Cambridge, England. Anyway, back to our task at hand. Let me get you back down there. And we'll keep going. Can you see me? All right, we're good. I have to say, it's kind of nice to have company. It's been getting a little lonely here. All right, Moby Dick. Maybe some other time, if you guys want, I can go back to Moby Dick and we can take a look at that. Moby Dick. Or The Whale. I didn't realize it had a subtitle. Herman Melville. Now, why would Dad have it in a shelf called Menippean Satire, you ask? Good question. He wrote a book about it called Cynic Satire, which was published through Cambridge Scholars Press a couple of years ago now. It's horribly expensive, but maybe you can find a used copy or something. Hardcover, good condition. Chicago, 1952. If I had started this series a little while before, you would have seen some more interesting books. In particular, the collection of Francis Bacon from this series, which seems to have been a source book for laws of media. Has a lot of Marshall and Eric's notes in it. This one, not so much. Nothing. So I have to go get some more books. And you can come with me while I do that. Hey, there's actually people watching right now. That's kind of cool. Hi, people. Oh, jeez. The pitfalls of one-handed operations. Luckily, I sweat in here lately. It's very professional of me. Let's put those there for now. And we'll get the next set here. There we go. Man, can't believe I'm dropping books on live YouTube. What am I doing? I hope you'll forgive me. Okay. How are we doing for time? 12 minutes. So I'll give you a couple more minutes and then I'll proceed on my own. So if you're just tuning in, we did Hegel, Goethe, and Melville, and now we are on to Darwin. Number 49 in the great books of the Western world. We have here the origin of species by means of natural selection. And the descent of man. And selection in relation to sex by Mr. Charles Darwin. Hardcover, good condition. Chicago Encyclopedia Britannica, 1952. A little bit of dust on the top there. Nothing on the end papers. You may recall it was Tom Wolfe who wrote a now famous essay, What If He Is What He Sounds Like, the greatest thinker since Pavlov, Einstein, Darwin, etc., etc. What if he's right? Was the question, which Marshall later quipped, I'd rather be wrong. Makes you wonder. What do you mean by that? I do have a couple of copies of that issue of the New York Post, by the way, which will be going up for sale on the McLuhan Institute site coming up soon. If you want one, let me know. This could be interesting. I'll do this one and then sign off for the night. Number 50 in the great books of the Western world. Capital by Karl Marx. Edited by Friedrich Engels. Serious stuff here. Oops, I just noticed a typo in my previous entry. Capital. And Manifesto of the Communist Party. By Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Karl Marx. Haven't read it myself. Not really that interested. Marshall stated various places he didn't think too much of it either. It's kind of rear view mirror stuff. Anyway, let's, I can already see there is a bookmark in there. The bookmark is between pages 156 and 157. It's just a plain piece of paper, card. And it's either at the end of the chapter, the concept of relative surplus value, or the beginning of chapter 8, cooperation. But there is absolutely no indication as to why there would be a bookmark here or if there's anything of interest. It's not very hard to find places where Marshall comments on Marx and Marxism, communism. If you care about that stuff. And there's nothing there. So, leave it there for the night. Thanks for tuning in. I'll come back next week if all goes well, and we'll do this again. Take care.